What's up, fam? So today you're gonna see a day in the life of an online fitness coach living in New York City. So it's about 5:45-ish right now. Let me check my Apple Watch. Wow, it is the 5:45. Holy cow. And so I woke up about an hour ago, got a little bit of journaling done, got a little bit of meditation done, a little bit of a morning routine done, a little bit of a more, I know some of y'all like, I don't do morning routines. And there was a study that was done in Stanford where they had two groups of people. And essentially what they did was they took 100 people in group A and they were handed a hot cup of coffee. And then similarly, there was another 100 group of people in group B and they were handed a cold cup of coffee. And about 20 minutes later, they followed these people around and they were given a script to read and asked to describe the character in the script. And 80% of the people that were given a hot cup of coffee described that character as warm, kind, genuine, whereas the people that were handed a cold cup of coffee, 81% of them, which is statistically insignificant, described the same character as cold and conniving and ingenuine. And the only difference was which cup of coffee they were handed 20 minutes prior. And so what the Stanford researchers found this phenomenon to be it's what's called priming in psychology. And priming is sort of like the lens through which you view the world. And so it doesn't have to be this extensive morning routine. I don't feel like you gotta go do a 3-hour workout, plunge, and all this crap. But I do think if you even spend 20, 30 minutes, pray, take care of your faith, your fitness, all these things. I do believe that working harder on yourself and your personal development, as opposed to working harder on your job, will not only lead to greater and greater and greater success because that consistency compounds, but more importantly, it's going to build a good amount of momentum for the rest of the day. And once you've done something where you've built positive momentum early in the day, it's going to carry with you throughout the rest of the day. So that's my hot take on morning routines. And so speaking of morning routines, another thing I'm going to do right now is I maybe slept 6 hours at best. And so huge hack is having some creatine, having some water, having some salt, not even having any caffeine at all right now. And that alone is going to help me feel like I'm a lot more alert. Creatine is not just for building muscle, right? And like recovery. It's also a good majority of it, I believe 70%, don't quote me on the number, is utilized by your brain. And creatine is a form of energy. And if you're sleep deprived and you're not sleeping 7-8 hours a night, then it could be a good way to kind of battle some of that initial fatigue you might feel and give you a little bit of a boost. So that's what I'm gonna do right now, and then I'm gonna get to work on some client check-ins. Every day is a little bit different. On Fridays, I usually do a little bit of client check-ins, and then from there, I have some meetings, and then we'll take you throughout the rest of the day. Hey, what's up, Dan? I hope you're having a great week, my man, and I wanted to share a little bit of feedback with you here based on this past week's check-in. So, Dan, you're doing a really good job with hitting your protein goal. Much better job with hitting your protein targets. Two things. Number one is I love everything here. It's good. And what I would encourage you to do is push for those 10,000 steps. Now, I know there was literally a heat wave in New York, for the last few days. Thankfully, that's over. But let's definitely push for at least 10,000 steps a day. And the reason why, I might have even shared this with you at some point, is because, if we look at what accounts for your total daily energy expenditure, 20% of it comes from non-exercise activity, which walking is the largest part of. So you're going to burn virtually double the calories walking compared to any other form of exercise. So let's make that a priority. And then the second thing is don't be afraid of carbs. What you're eating now it's good. You're having enough protein, you're eating enough calories, And what I want to encourage you to start doing more so of is eating a little bit less dietary fat and a little bit more carbs. And this is why. Over 60% of your muscle is composed of water. And so carbs are essentially water weight, right? Every gram of carbs holds 3 to 4 grams of water. And so when you're eating enough carbs, you're going to build enough what's called muscle glycogen. That's like the stored carbs, if you will, inside of your muscles. And that muscle glycogen is not only going to help with your fueling your performance, but it's also going to help you begin to look more defined and leaner as well. So what I really want to encourage you to do here is, let's just say instead of having 6 eggs, 3 slices of turkey bacon in the morning, maybe have 3 eggs, 3 egg whites, 2 slices of turkey bacon in the morning, have the cantaloupe, that's great. And then for lunch, have the salmon, nothing wrong with that. I think one thing I'd be curious to hear from you about is when you say beef patty, what leanness is that? Is that 93%? Is that 85%? Because that makes a huge difference with regard to how many calories that you're actually eating from it. So that would be my other recommendation as well, is being very specific with your food logs. For lunch and a meal like this, I would imagine you might have combined lunch and dinner for a meal like this. I don't know if you had it all at the same time or you just logged it in this way. But what I would recommend for sure is having more carbs and a little bit less fat. And so very simply, what you could have done is you could have the salmon, and then you can have 6 ounces of 93, 94, 96% lean ground beef. That would keep everything the same, significantly lower your fat and calories. And then you would have the room to have, instead of a quarter cup of rice, a full cup of rice. And your calories would be about the same. You're just redistributing a little bit of the fat to the carbs so that you can, again, fuel your performance, build up some muscle glycogen, and give your body a little bit more of a defined appearance as we continue to lose body fat. All right, so a couple of hours later and client check-ins are all done. Going to move on to tracking some of the finances for the business, getting on top of that. I like to do that a couple times a month to make sure that everything is running smoothly and I know where all my numbers are. One of the things that I've had to learn the hard way is that money is a cruel mistress. And if you don't pay attention to what's coming in, what's going out, what's going where, it will go into the hands of the people that are paying attention to it. And so thankfully, I didn't have to learn it too much of a harsh lesson, but it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. So gonna do that now, and then got a bunch of meetings later on, and then probably gonna hit the gym later, and that's gonna be it. There's only so much you can learn from other people's mistakes. There are certain things where you've got to make your own mistakes, and that's okay. And it might feel in the moment like, but I was sharing with one of my fitness coaching clients earlier today. He's looking for an apartment in New York, and one of the apartments that approved him literally fell through, and he's looking to move with his dog from like Nevada, and it's like a whole thing. And I shared with him my favorite quote of all time, which comes from a Roman emperor named Marcus Aurelius. And he said, "The impediment to action advances action, and what stands in the way becomes the way." And so what I want you to think about is there's no such thing as failure unless you quit. There's only learning lessons along the way. And sometimes those learning lessons, they're like, right? And sometimes they're not. But it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to mess up and to test things and to quote unquote learn, right? Not fail. And it's because of those things you're going to succeed. And ultimately, on the opposite flip side of failure is success. And that's what you're going to find. So rant is done. Would love to hear your guys' comments, questions, reflections on anything I just said before I dive into Beverly question you had earlier for today.
I like it. I think there's a lot of validity to it. Like I'm gonna play around with the affiliates thing, and it
Yep.
either works or it doesn't.
Yep.
Um, I think there's, I think the biggest thing that, at least for myself, and I do believe a fair amount of other folks can improve on and adjust is people, people that there are people that are winning that are half as there's people that are half as intelligent than you that are winning 10 times as much as you because they're just not overthinking it and they're just trying shit, throwing shit at the wall and like seeing what sticks. Nobody remembers the shit that you didn't do well. They're just like, oh, you tried that, it didn't work, so who cares? And so an area, because I'm a measure thrice cut once type of person, I think I could at least reduce it to measure twice cut once. And so trying to get better at that, I think,
Yeah.
is a high leverage thing and just a little, because I was in management consulting way back. I've done a bunch of different things, and one of them was management consulting, and I learned. No, we're not going to rant about that. Within that, there's the idea. It's part of, I think, lean UX, for and like design thinking principles of have a hypothesis, create an experiment to test the hypothesis, create metrics that would be prior to actually running the experiment, create metrics that determine if it was a success or failure, because you can get biased through the experiment emotionally. And then after that, retrospectively look at it, see what you learned, and apply it to the next experiment. And then that iteration from an app development perspective results in you creating software that people want rather than you think they want, which is very common where you just have
Mm.
these apps full of shit.
Yeah.
There was an example from a different company where I promise there's a point in this, but basically they made like it was the perfect example of like scope creep and lack of like lean UX and design thinking and like validation usage, where they had a system for accounting folks and they created 75 filters for them to use, like to parse through everything. Completely unusable. It took them $2 million to create this in terms of dev costs and everything. Then this person whom I know came in with actual design experience and sat down with the user, by the way, for the first time, that they talked to the user and they said, what do you want? They said three filters. They removed 72 of them and that became the application. So if you do the math of like what, 72 over like 24 to like 125th, so like a 4%, it's like it would have cost like $50,000 to create the entire application. Obviously, like that's not, anyways, barring
That
nuance
is
to that. It's
fascinating.
really interesting.
All right, fam. So it is about 1:30 in the afternoon right now, and I'm about to make a protein shake. Just wrapped up doing a bunch of coaching calls. Got a few more left for today, and that's it. I'll be done by about 4 o'clock. Of course, there's always more work to do. I could keep working. I'm definitely going to do a little bit of a live stream later tonight, sharing my experience with dating, speed dating. I went on a speed dating event for South Asians, which is my people's, on Wednesday this past week. And so I'll be sharing some of the lessons that I've learned on my speed dating event. And I'll be sharing those with you on my podcast, which I'll link here if you want to go ahead and watch it or listen to it. And so that's it. This is a day in the life. You know, I'm going to go work out. I can, this is freedom. This is why I love doing this, right? It's because I make my own schedule. If I want to wake up at 4 in the morning and just work and I'll be done by like mid-afternoon, I can do that. I can be done by early afternoon. Like, this is the beauty of just having freedom. And like, please excuse my absolutely barren like no furniture. I just moved in this Monday. Although I will say this is peak male living experience right now. Let me show you what my furniture looks like. It's hilarious. I'm like the definition right now of a minimalist. In my office, I have a desk and a chair. That's it. And like some acoustic panels that I got to put up later. And then I literally have a mattress on the floor and like that and a blanket. That's it. That's my freaking hell. That's, you know, when I first moved a couple years ago, I furnished my place in like 3 days. I got a couch, TV, chairs, all that. Like, you know what? This time I'm just gonna get what I need, which is somewhere to sleep, somewhere to work, and then I'm gonna take my time and like get a couch, get it. I don't know if I'm gonna get a TV. You know, I like not having distractions. I gotta lock in right now. No distractions. Having a TV is definitely a distraction, but I will say it's tempting. It's tempting. It's nice having a TV. You want to entertain, you want to have people over. I'll probably do it for that reason, but for me, I don't need much, right? Like this is it, right? But you want to have people over, and it's not all about you. It's not all about me, myself, and I. I want to make sure it's a good experience for people that come over, and I'm hosting, and my family and friends, and like I said, I'm dating, so you know what I mean? So that's it. I will see you back for hopefully when I get to the gym later on today, and I'll take you along for the ride. All right, fam, so that is a wrap of the day today, and we're about to hit the gym, about to hit a brutal leg workout. Friday night leg workout. Let's get it done. Let's get her done. Let's go. And we are back. Just got back from the gym, hit a brutal leg workout, and that's it for the day. I'm gonna go ahead and have a little bit of dinner. So I was gonna have some chicken thighs, but what I decided to do instead was have rice with a little bit of sardines. I'll share with you why in a moment, and a little bit of broccoli. And the reason why I chose sardines is because they have about 300%, don't quote me on the exact number, but about 300% of your required DHA for the entire week in that little can. And so it's going to help with cognition and with your overall brain, because I believe over 60% of your brain is comprised of this compound. And so this is the benefits of having things like cod liver oil or fish oil. And so I just wanted to make sure I had a little bit of that, because I haven't been taking my fish oil supplements for a few months now. And so that was it. I hope that you enjoyed my day in the life as an online fitness coach. It was like a mini day in the life, not a full day in the life. But one thing I will say, I want to make sure I don't lock myself out. One thing I will say is that now I'm going to focus on making some content after this, right? And it's about 6:41, and my goal would be to get to bed no later than 10, maybe a little bit beyond that. And then from there, what I'm simply going to do is wake up in the morning at 4:45, maybe even earlier, and get to work. I'm going to have some family come over later tomorrow morning or later in the afternoon, but I really want to make sure I get a good amount of work done. And this is kind of the way I'm in a building phase right now. I'm in a season where I'm aggressively growing. And so my whole days kind of revolve around content, conversations with clients, meetings, team members, building out systems, SOPs, all of these different things, working on the business. And it's a lot of fun. And I get to serve my clients at the highest level. In fact, I was just checking my retention rate. Industry average for us online fitness coaches is 50%. My retention rate is 87%. And check this out, of the let's say 6 people, haven't even had a chance to renew yet. So my retention rate is probably closer to 95%. And it's that high because we deliver such an amazing product. I'll leave you off with one of my favorite quotes. It comes from Naval Ravikant, who says that the only reason you sell is because you don't know how to market. And the only reason that you market is because you don't understand product. So product is everything. So I wanted to share that quick idea with you. I hope that this was insightful, and I will see you in my next YouTube video. Talk soon. So today I'm gonna share with you the mile 18 marathon story on how to have a breakthrough. So hey, this is Urslan. I'm the creator of the Fit Body Breakthrough Program, and welcome back to another episode of The Inner Game. This is the #1 show helping you master your inner world so that you can achieve your full potential in the outer world. So comment down below and let me know if you are tuning in live by commenting live, or if you're catching me at a later time, comment, replay. That way I know when this is reaching you.